So everybody knows what the Rochester Police Department does, hopefully, and I'm just very grateful for Mary and for setting this meeting for us an opportunity to hear your ideas. I'm going to take the opportunity so they don't get away with it. We have some more RPD people. I've got Commander Tim List, who's commanding officer of our patrol division, Lieutenant Mike Jones, who's my chief of staff, and Commander Joe Morabito, who's in charge of the Special Operations Division. So we may want to question to one of them, but they're going to be helping us take notes and make sure we follow up on all this. Thank you.
I'm Kevin Black. I'm the acting resident agent in charge of DDA's Rochester office. I'm here to hear your ideas. We work hand in hand every day with everyone in the state.
Good evening, my name is Mick Sertz. I am the Assistant Zone Commander of Zone 1, Troop B, which consists of Monroe County, Livingston County, Ontario County. We have about 100 troopers that work in those areas. We work, again, every day with the other agencies. We have troopers assigned within the city that work with the RPD guys every night, evening, and give patrols. But anything that you need, we can help you with. So I think the big thing is you got to reach out and talk to somebody, which we're doing tonight. Names with faces. So if you call me, I can try to remember a face, but you tell me where we met, and we'll do our best thing and put it in the right lap with somebody to get it done.
We saw you were in town tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think the RPD, they did a great job too.
You know, real fast, we'll just give our names and where we're from, all right? I'm Mary Coffey, Northwood Village, co-chair.
Colleen McCarthy, Monroe Avenue, Monroe Avenue, Washington.
I'm Jim Sites, president of Buck Neighborhood.
Carrie Carroll with the Ace Neighborhood Association.
Pat Jackson representing Senator Roebuck. Mary Ann Pastardi, ABC Streets Association.
Next, Molly Clifford, City Council Northwest District, resident of Maplewood.
Pam Davis, Lotus resident.
Marilyn Schutte, Northwood Village.
Tim Macaluso, City Newspaper.
Kevin Wilson from the Pocket Neighborhood.
Andrew Hollister from Charlotte.
Marianne Fishbowl, Northwood Village.
Gary Fishbowl from the neighborhood.
Cheryl Robinson. I live in Bensonhurst, but I work in Beechwood, so I spend my time with
Paul Baker with SOARS, an organization we started, my wife and I started a couple of years ago after we had our son overdose.
Becky Baker, the executive director of SOARS, and we are on your team and appreciate all of you. Thanks.
I'm Katie Ashton, and I'm a member of the SOARS group. Mary Wallace,
Mary Ann Smith. St. Jude. Yes, sir.
Lori Maxwell Andrews.
Mary Hall,
Vice Chair of Northwood Village and President of Northwood Village. Chief Lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office in Jailbird.
Dr. Keisha Smith, I'm the Director of Drug and Alcohol Programming for the Butler County Sheriff's Office and the Veterans Unit, and I oversee the vocational education program located at the correctional facility.
Tom Paspecki, ADC Neighborhood Association.
In here, Maplewood.
Dorian Hall from Flex Neighborhood Association.
And we just had another young gentleman walk here. And what's your neighborhood, hon?
Quavis Walker. I run a non-for-profit called Go Ministries, working with at-risk youth in the city.
So, at-risk youth, and correct, you work with at-risk?
Yeah, I work with at-risk youth in the city and in the suburbs. It's a not-for-profit that I started.
And we're in school, that's kind of where it's all at. And right over here, it's where it's at. And that's why we might get stuff off the streets. Everybody said that somebody has a polio epidemic. Look at the block at place. We could have just kept them all in hospitals and taken care of them. And not got a vaccine. We got rid of the rat that was here in the place. You got to get rid of the stuff that's killing and infecting, and you gotta help those that need help. God help us, we need to. And, so that's why we're with law enforcement tonight. And we'll be meeting with our entities, but we're with you tonight to get it off. And I'm sure you have a lot of stories to tell.
Many.
I know, my heart is with you. Okay. Jim, you're going to say the next.
We would like to see arrests and sentencing for all forms of illegal drugs, sales and distribution. All illegal drugs are dangerous and are ruining our community.
Can I comment on that?
Please.
Sir, this is something we cannot arrest our way out of. Every one of these gentlemen and ladies will tell you, we can't. It's a disease. It's a brain disease. We need to start treating it like the disease that it is. I agree with putting the dealers away. I'd love to see that happen, but we cannot arrest our way out of it.
No, we understand that. That's why we say we support in any way we can those that are addicted.
Okay.
No, we understand that. I think there's probably not many people in this room that haven't been affected one way or another, or know someone one way or another that's been part of being affected by addiction. Mine was legal. I smoked. But I knew I couldn't give it up. It was my best friend. So, you know, addiction's a nasty, nasty disease. But those that are spreading the drugs, that's who we want out.
I would like her to expand on what has to happen. You said it's an illness, so you can treat it as an illness. And then we got to get the distribution network interrupted and eradicated. What do we do for these people? What?
It's going to take a long time, just like with the AIDS epidemic. This is something, I mean, it's taken over. It's the #1 cause of death in people 50 years old and younger in the United States. I wish I had the answers. I'm here to learn as much as I can because I wish I had the answers.
So we don't have, what we need to do is in place.
Monroe County is lacking detox beds. I probably had 86 phone calls trying to get people help and into treatment for addiction. And out of those, 3 people got a bed in Monroe County. The others had to go out of the county to get treatment.
So that's really the biggest thing that we've run into is the fact that I know the mayor started her streets to treatment. We're starting to do this where it's instant access to getting into a bed and getting treatment. A lot of times somebody will come up to us and sit there and say, I just need help, take them to the hospital, try and get them into a bed, and they say there is no bed available. Here's an appointment, come back and see us in 2 weeks, and we'll get you a bed. And that's really where we see the problem. So we have partnered here in the city with Rochester Regional Health to be able to, our officers can take people who are not in crisis mode as far as needing emergency help, but if they know that they're starting to get sick and they say, that's it, I'm done, I don't want to do anymore, we can take them right over to our Evelyn Brandon Center right on State Street or Lake Avenue and take them in there and actually get them counseling, get them medical help, get them right there, get them through that sickness phase and then start that intensive treatment right off the bat. But again, there's only a certain number of beds, especially for this heroin issue. So that's really the biggest thing.
It takes many times, you probably know that, it's not always, it takes the orders effective. And with my clients, when I would work with them, most of them from the city, and they would say, Mary, they stay away from every person, place, and thing, and I walk out of my door. And there is.
We're seeing an epidemic, especially with heroin, that we've never seen before. There's the fact that they came up with this wonderful drug called Narcan that saves people's lives, but it also allows people to feel like they're invincible. And they can take more and more heroin, and you can give me up to 4 doses of Narcan and bring me back from the brinks of death. And you know what? I'm going to try it again. And that's the problem with heroin addiction is they're always seeking to try and go a little bit farther, a little bit farther, a little bit farther. Cocaine and, everything else that we've dealt with before, I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, you overdose on cocaine most of the time, I mean, they have a whole bunch of different symptoms. But heroin, I mean, once they get physically addicted, people get physically sick. And so they want to stop, but they can't because it makes them physically sick.
And the other drugs, spiritually, mentally, physically, as well.
And if I could just add, recently, because we're looking at a way to, collaborate on this heroin addiction. My specialty is not treatment. My specialty, is law enforcement and prosecution. And getting back to what you said, we've got to target the dealers. Maybe if we could stop, with the dealers, then the epidemic will lessen. I mean, right now, this year, in 2017, we have, I believe, close to 85 fatalities and over 350 non-fatal overdoses. So, and that's only what we know. The medical examiner's numbers are going to be, way higher because some just don't reach law enforcement. So those are the numbers that we're working with. And our hands, to a certain extent, are tied because, there are the statutes and the laws that we work within. Like, for example, what I was saying with marijuana, which, I believe is a gateway drug. Unlawful possession of marijuana is a violation. You can't get, a jail sentence for that. It's a fine. People come in, in and out of the court system. The judges fine them, and then maybe we see them again in a couple weeks. We have a lot of, people going to our drug court or our judicial diversion part, which is another fancy term for drug court. But what we see there are, the people know if they go to JDP court that their convictions, may be reduced or sealed. So there, the problem is you're getting people who are using, who don't really have the issue. You've got the drug dealers who don't have the problem, but they may be stopped for, sale or possession, and they want to get in there, and they're taking offense because they know ultimately the criminal justice system is going to throw out their conviction. So the hardest part is really identifying who needs the help versus who are these horrible dealers that we've got to take off the streets immediately. So I think that's what we're all wrestling with. That's what we have to do to identify.
And you know what, I agree. Sometimes jail helps, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it does save a life. So I'm not saying jail is the bad.
We've had two employees' children could not get in rehab for over a year because they get rehab. Not everybody becomes a criminal because you're drug addict. Over time, you wear out family, friends, and then eventually most of them do end up committing crimes. And these people, because they couldn't get help and it took so long, end up committing crimes to support the habit. Families ran out of money and things to steal. They start stealing from others. But in the jail, they came out ready for treatment, replacing treatment. We actually have two great success stories that are both doing very well. And so it's not the way you want to get treatment, but we have had some good success. I don't know, Tish, if you want to comment on that.
And the Vivitrol program in the jail. That's right. We have a Vivitrol program in the jail, which is medication-assisted treatment. Inmates are allowed to get their first shot, and then they're automatically getting help with getting into some sort of health insurance that will cover outpatient treatment and cover the shot as well.
If you can explain what Vivitrol is. If you can explain to everyone.
So Vivitrol is an opiate blocker, so that if a person does take opiates again after they've received a shot for 30 days, opiates will not register in the brain and they cannot overdose on this medication. And so what ends up happening is those people who want the shot, who are tested, like it goes to the liver, it's processed in the liver, so you have to make sure liver functions are good, and they go through a whole physical, and then they also get a mental health exam to make sure that it won't increase depression if they already have existing depression, and then they're able to get their first shot while they're incarcerated and just prior to discharge from the correctional facility, and they're hooked up with an outpatient provider to continue the shots and to continue their treatment. And hopefully those folks that get the shot while they're incarcerated will also be in the drug and alcohol program during their incarceration. So they might be there for anywhere from 2 months to 2 years. So hopefully during that process it will get them to think about their drug addiction and then move them into an outpatient setting where they can continue to do the work.
But we have to get rid of the product.
Bryce, you have a question?
One thing I want to bring up real quick, you hear a lot about heroin, which is obviously the ways that we have killing people, but unfortunately, something I've noticed in not personal circles, but circles and circles of friends, that's hitting young people in the city that I don't think it's talked about a lot, is I have a couple cases, especially of people I know where meth is becoming a major problem, especially in the gay community in Rochester, where it's turning into a very large issue that not a lot of people talk about or know about. There's dealers out there, there's people going to parties and doing all kinds of crazy things, and I've known a couple people who overdose not from meth but from heroin because the meth is the party drug or the designer or whatever they want to, however they want to do it, you know, and then it turns into, then they start doing GHB with the meth, and the next thing you know, they start with the heroin. You know, it's another gateway, but you know, the meth one I've noticed is getting worse and worse and worse. I cannot tell you how many people that I've come across or have told me about that I've never imagined are doing it because they don't have track marks to prove anything. You know, but then either they turn on to other things because they're already high on one thing, and then it turns into, you know, so it's something I don't care about in the news. I don't care about a lot, but it is definitely something I am seeing a major issue with people my age range. Like it was a big Southwest issue in the United States, but it's definitely creeping its way here.
Yeah, just, you know, we don't separate drug dealers we've arrested. They're selling cocaine, they're selling fentanyl, they're selling marijuana. They don't care.
No.
You know, they're scum. They're doing whatever they can.
No, I don't think there's enough awareness of.
No, and a lot of these overdoses, I mean, there's an individual or a cocktail within that person. I mean, it could be many substances.
I mean, nationally and locally, we were talking about the heroin, but I start somewhere. Usually people don't start shooting, people don't usually like needles naturally, so they don't usually start shooting themselves up naturally. You know, they usually start somewhere. You know, and meth is more, not only for classy, but in some mindsets, less, you know, creepy than needles, and then it turns into needles. No, that's, I guess, I'm just seeing more.
So,
There's a community database to get everything out.
Can I just address the issue of the gateway drug? One of the things, I used to work in inpatient chemical dependency, so I'm very familiar with treatment. I was there for 7 years in a hospital setting. One of the things that I think we, as a society, need to really kind of get a hold of is the term gateway drug. There is no gateway drug anymore. There isn't like people starting on alcohol. Like the natural progression back in the day used to be alcohol, marijuana, and then they would move to whatever. We have young people right now starting on heroin. They don't smoke, they don't do anything else, it's heroin. And I think what happens is the community starts focusing on like, oh, let's focus on the marijuana, or let's focus on alcohol. We need to focus on all of the drugs. And it really is about behavior. And so when we talk about at-risk youth and kids, and like, we have to look at the behavior that leads them to needing this drug or feeling that they need this drug, as opposed to looking at, oh, well, now that we, you know, caught little Johnny with this marijuana, oh, we must, you know, keep all eyes on him. It's not even that. It's more of a societal issue where we're looking at the behavior, the partying, the not going to school. I mean, we have to look at our children who are in foster care and adopted and, you know, not going to school. Those are the behaviors we need to focus on, as opposed to the gateway thing.
Our children are hurting in this city. They're very angry. They're hurting, and they have a right to.
Just thinking about these people, is it possible in order to help them to have that unity? Step one is when they be arrested, only that period. Once we finish step one, now they move into step two. I think this will take a long time, but by the time they get to step three, when they in step two, now they start some type of training program to help them to start getting ready to go back out to the street and to get jobs.
That's more or less in place now. Education is the first part, and there's a variety of programs that we all have in the schools to educate the public. And the media actually has been pretty good with this, educating about how dangerous it is. The second part is we don't want to, we want to interdict before the crime's committed. So what officers are now doing in Monroe County, all agencies, if we go to your house and there's a domestic, and we realize that domestic is based on behavior that is leading to somebody who's, they maybe not found out. Adults, we don't know how to handle when your kid or your spouse, because a lot of these people are 40 and 50. It's not just kids. they're getting hooked on it after medical treatment. So we want to deal with them and get them into some kind of care before they start committing crimes and before they become fully addicted or worse. So we have open access that's just opened up on university that we are now dropping people off Monday through Saturday. It's the first one in the country of its kind, where they're going to take in anybody that they can get there on their own, and we bring them, and they're going to do an assessment and then help them find that bed that mom and dad, husband cannot get them into the bed, can't get insurance. So this just started full-fledged Wednesday, I think, the 9th. So this past week, we did a test in August. In August, I think 13 people were brought in, 12 of them were placed in treatment. That's way better than it was. So this is going to continue to grow.
Can it be court mandated though?
You know,
I thought it
this is for people, we have court mandated care.
This
This is
pre-arrest.
before you commit a crime. We don't want you committing crimes. We don't want you getting killed and committing a crime or hurting someone.
Why can't a judge
before that.
mandate you go into rehab?
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's through the drug court or the judicial diversion part.
Or you have to be in one of those courts.
Right, there has to be the arrest first.
But if you got arrested for something else, you're an addict, that judge can't, for that, unless you go into drug court, that judge can't mandate, I want you to do rehab.
Well, there's also.
The judge can, it depends on, the case. A judge is not going to mandate rehab on, again, unlawful possession of marijuana. They do require them to get evaluations, which is good. Right. But again, all of our judges are really attuned to this epidemic, and they want to give those who need help. So there are mechanisms that they can use.
Could you explain what you mean by evaluation?
A drug or alcohol evaluation by a licensed provider.
Is that like a medical physical exam of some sort or a psychological exam?
Yes, usually by an OASIS certified provider. And they would, it'll be a background to see if this is just, an isolated incident, or if they do have, addiction characteristics, and then maybe they will recommend some type of treatment. And then if we end up ACDing, adjourning in contemplation of dismissal for 6 months, part of the condition of that adjournment would be that they follow through on what's recommended in the evaluation.
And that follows right into the next, or the question below that, actually, dealing with the judicial system, which kind of cropped into this one. We're being polite. Well, you probably know if you say you have 5 bags of marijuana, and you're just not going to get arrested. And you might have 20 in a flower pot that you're going to go and sell back and forth. So then we have our ongoing open drug market selling. So how can you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we have so many unlawful possession of marijuanas that we can't even send that substance to the lab, because the lab is inundated with all of the misdemeanor and the felony possession and sale charges of marijuana, meth, cocaine.
So they know keep 5 on you if you're selling.
I don't know what the criteria is for arrest, but I know if
If you have drugs on you, you're arrested.
Yeah, if it's a violation level.
If they have, say, 5 bags, but if they have a whole lot more, then
you get arrested with enthusiasm.
and then you might
That's the other guys in blue here. That's their mission in life, is to find these guys, protect people. And if they get a hint that somebody's around drugs, they go hunting for it. And they do a real good job finding it. The challenge is just so much. And so as soon as you clear a corner in a drug house, the next guy's up.
Are gangs one of the problems that we're running into? It's actually one of our questions. Do we have a gang problem in Rochester? How big is it? Is it a key component?
Yeah, we do major, first of all, we have to just be careful of our terminology. What we don't have in Rochester at this point, we don't have entrenched groups that are affiliated with national level gangs, your Blood Crips, the MS-13. So a lot of these gangs which really play some areas, like for example, MS-13 now has really become very strong in the Long Island area. We don't have that, and so I know I get asked this question all the time. What we do have we do have groups of people that come together to commit crimes. Sometimes it's drug dealing, sometimes it's robbery, sometimes it's both, but we do have groups of people that come together to commit crimes. Sometimes they're neighborhood-based, sometimes they're even family-based. So we do have criteria. We follow national criteria for a gang database. We do track what we call gang activity. I just want to be careful. Now, one of the things that we talk about, sometimes the more organized an activity is, it gives us greater opportunity to deal with it. Because, you've probably seen the TV show or the movie where, the cop finds the head of the gang and they have a truce and they shut it down, and this one guy can shut down all the crime and all the fighting and everything. We don't have a lot, our gangs are not that organized. The other thing is there's some great laws, RICO, there's continuing criminal enterprise, CCE, that I used to work with in my DEA days. Maybe you can discuss that. So we have conspiracy laws. There's great things we can do with these groups that are organized. Sometimes, though, we'll have these groups that maybe there's 8 or 10 people, they're loosely affiliated. So today, these 3 will go out and commit a robbery. Then tomorrow, 2 of them and someone else will go out and do something. So it's still very serious crime. We do investigate them as groups, and a lot of times they'll get in these violent disputes. So so depending on how you want your terminology or how you want to use the terminology, we do have, in one sense, we do have gang activity in Rochester, but it's not the national level gangs you may hear about, but it's still a serious issue.
Can we use RICO here?
Well, we have used it, we can, we have to, and maybe I'm going to let DA talk about that, but I'll just say briefly, you just have to bear in mind that, we have to look at different strategies and we want it to fit. A case like a RICO can take months and really realistically years to do, and a lot of things can be happening while that's going on.
They're using their teenagers as mules to carry and sell the drugs.
Maybe I really like the DA to talk about that, because it's really an expertise of DA to deal with these ongoing criminal conspiracies.
Now, what I can't do is speak for the U.S. Attorney's Office, but RICO cases are most appropriate for the worst of the worst groups out there. So our job is to identify those groups, the members, the leaders, and then be able to articulate exactly why do they qualify as that, as the worst groups out there. So, and that's the work that we do every day with everyone here. So just because there may be a group on your block that, even if they have 10, 12, 15 members, that may not qualify as a RICO. But there are other tools that we have. But getting the intelligence, getting everyone together to put that down so that we can articulate to the courts, why this needs to be done, why we need to have a multi-agency investigation and dedicate X number of months into a group to shut them down. That's exactly what we do with DEA.
We have 100 in the city, islands of corners, territory, all sorts of
The large-scale drug trafficking, the consortium had 2 significant arrests last year that interdicted large quantities of drugs coming out of Philadelphia. So there are, your street-level stuff. Our goal, and the goal of the guys in the back of the room, is we want those big-level dealers, the guys that are bringing in the big stuff. We want fentanyl from China. If you saw the thing in the news, the NYPD is searching bags, luggage, post office stuff with drug dogs. We do that here. So we interdict stuff that's being shipped in mail, as well as working with intelligence with DEA on a national scale with Arizona and California, where it's coming from.
That goes with everything. I mean, we've interdicted hundreds of pounds of weed coming through through one of the shipping companies here. We've gone down to California, down to Pennsylvania to make large-scale methamphetamine busts. Again, targeting the gay community because that's exactly where it all started, right through them. So we're equal opportunity enforcement.
And that's why
Give us some work, we'll do it.
And that's why we need the DEA, the feds in here, that's bringing them across, and the state across lines into here.
Absolutely.
And they're all, majority is coming into Rochester. Like Dorothy Hill.
It was 8 hours we were talking evidence. And actually we didn't commit crime. Only thing we were why that was. I ran away after my mother died when I was 18. I ran away after using scholarship and stuff. And looking for love, and I got caught up with the wrong people. But the vast majority of the teenagers out in the street today is why? Because they're looking for love. Why? Because babies aren't having babies. Babies don't know how to take care of babies. And you know what? We grown-ups have gotten so we don't pay them any attention at all. You know, and what has to happen and need to happen. The men need to pull off the suits and the ties and put on some jeans and go out there and try to encourage young boys. The older young ladies need to pull off her heels and put on some jeans, maybe a raggedy skirt or whatever, and go and encourage the young ladies. Because there is no encouragement for our youth. The only thing that we talk about is the badness that they do. We don't show any love or any consideration or anything. So we need to stop that. We need to start showing love. And I'm not talking about one committee over here, one committee. One group doing the same ID thing, showing love. That goes for our drug abuser. I admit I was an alcoholic. Stayed drunk, woke up drunk, went to sleep drunk. But I made up in my mind I didn't want no more than for 45 years ago. And I have not touched it. I did not need no group. You understand me? What you need is to focus on trying to make things better for our youth. I'm not concerned too much about the grown-ups because they can do anything they want to. As long as they have the determination, are determined, they can do it. But our youth need guidance.
That's where we can be great examples, but it only goes so far. I can't go into your houses and sit there and teach you.
Yes, you can. You can go in my house and
If you invite me, absolutely.
You can go in my house. You can go in my house. I have great grandkids. If you think they out there doing something they need, come into my house. Talk to me about it.
I wish
You
more
understand?
people were like
If you feel like you
Absolutely.
if you feel like you want to spank them, if you want to spank them and bring them to me and I'll spank them again.
That's where this is. That's where this is a collaboration.
Love, L-O-V-E, love, it's got for your phone.
That's where this is where it's collaboration. This is where neighborhoods need to come together. This is where families need to come together and do this work in cooperation.
We have to come together to get the drugs. You know, our kids live in war zones, so hearing gunshots, relatives killed, people doing drugs, well, their homes are embattled, are less fortunate, are very embattled with drugs. And that's why you gotta give them hope. Oh.
Okay, my question is, first I want to thank everyone for being here. It's important. So I'm more of a thinking out of the box type of guy. So my thought is, when I talk to people who've been on drugs or people who are addicted or people who are addicted to heroin, first thing they say to me is they want treatment, but they're embarrassed, right? And obviously they don't want to go to their families. So can we create some type of committee together, since we're all working together here, to come up with a strategy of thinking outside the box, where we can come up with a program that people who are on drugs or people who have addiction could go somewhere where they feel comfortable and not feel like being threatened that they're going to be arrested, or not feel like being threatened they're going to have this record that messes them up the rest of their lives. So I'm just thinking, we're all here. Let's think outside of the box.
We're on the same
To
page.
feel comfortable about what? What do you mean?
So for example, I had a young lady who was taking heroin, and she was searching for treatment, but she didn't want to go to the the normal type of programs where you have to go and get locked.
She
Whatever
wants to
do
get
it,
treatment, but she doesn't want
but-
anyone to know about it?
Yeah, people want to get treatment, but kind of have it more personal and hidden.
We
I mean,
should
there's
have
people
a
out
list.
there, it's not all poor people or unfortunate people are on drugs. There's plenty of professionals out there, trial known, that doesn't, we don't even have a clue they're hooked on drugs. If they have an important job or well known, and they don't want, there's probably a good chance that they don't want everybody in the whole community, and the Democrat, and everybody else reporting on drugs and drugs.
The opioids
They want to
that-
get themselves up, but they're just hooked on it because they can't get caught.
We should have a list of rehab, put it up all over the city for
I mean, you're ruining some people's
Rehab's
reputations.
one extra. What you're saying, sir, is some places comfortable they can just walk in.
Right, some place
The open access that just opened, that's exactly what it is. It's a comfortable environment. You can bring a friend and they can hang out with you if you want. They have like lounge chairs. You can kick back and sleep it off while they're getting sorted out. They actually had a guy call from Wayne County that didn't have a ride, didn't have any people. They sent him an Uber. Uber picked him up and brought him to the open access.
That is outside.
That's outside, that's exactly what you're talking about. So we need to keep expanding that.
Yeah, people want help. So the young lady, she wanted help, and she actually reached out to me through Facebook and said, "Hey, Doreen, do you know of anything?" Because I'm out there, and I said, "Well, believe it or not, I only know the programs that the police or the those are the programs I know." She's like, "Well, I don't want to do those programs. Do you have something out there where you can walk into and be around other people who may have already had drug addiction,
Treatment access is perfect.
and feel
We're not involved in it.
Yeah, it's
All we
not
do
run
is
by
educate
police.
and
Yeah, we
deliver.
have great
Yeah,
rehab.
that's run by the opioid task force, DePaul, everybody else, and all that stuff, so.
When we're done with this, we will get a brochure for it.
Yeah.
We'll get you the brochure and you can email it to everybody.
And what about all the rehabs that people, if your friend wants to walk into,
Dr.
here
Smith
it
probably
is.
has an answer for that.
This young man, I think, wants to speak. Am I correct? Because you deal with kids at risk?
I just want to, you said when we're talking about, the drugs that's going around and programs and all that good stuff. I was kind of looking at it when I worked for Ibero, and I was the outreach director, and I would walk Scranton, Evergreen, and Clifford daily. And, I met a lot of the neighbors, started thinking about the drug dealers, the main drug dealers, and how smart they are because they have so many younger drug dealers. So if they get caught, their product is still going out there. So I started saying to myself, man, we can arrest them all, we can do this, but there's so many dealers out there that's provided for the users. So then I started thinking about, the community. And what comes to mind when it comes to, whether it be crime or drugs, drug use or guns in the community, is going to have to take the people that's actually paying mortgage or rent in the community for these things to actually slow down to where the people, the drug users and the dealers almost feel unwelcome. It's kind of like if you tell the drug dealers they're like kids, if you tell them to stop, well, they're going to want to do it again because they need something to talk about. You're giving me rules, I'm naturally going to go against them. So we was on Scranton. The idea I did on Scranton, or Evergreen, was to get signs to put on the front lawn saying this neighborhood wants to be a safe and clean neighborhood for our families. And it's like the more the users see those kind of things, the more they feel unwelcome and don't want to be around. So I say that to say it's going to take police officers and the community coming together in a sense of for accountability. One of the things that's been on my mind for like the last 6 months was like when I think of that neighborhood or any other neighborhood, it's like if there was, let's say, a talent show, police officers and community members, just something showing off their talents, getting to know one another. Now those officers, when they're out on the streets, they see so-and-so. So now they pull them aside and they say, you know what, you do got good talent. The neighbor may see somebody and say, hey, what are you doing? You can do A, B, C, and D. It has to take something that's going to bring the officers and the community together. That way people don't feel welcomed in areas. That way when drug use is happening, something can be said versus like, I'm going to call the cops. It'd be more like there's so much love in the community that it's like, we don't want this over here. So that's where my mind is at with it. Like, I think programs are beautiful. I think all those things are beautiful. But what can we do organically
Together.
that's gonna push the stuff away? If I want to keep my house clean, I got a 4, 3, and 1-year-old. If I want to keep my house clean, it just can't be me. With my wife, we got to come together and do something. Then I got to talk to my 4-year-old, like, okay, pick up your toys. Now the house can stay clean because we formed something together. So that's what I'm thinking about, that area, those particular 3 streets. What is it that can be done outside of taking everything we're asking and actually putting it into action? Because 7 months from now, we're going to have another meeting like this, some of the same drugs. 2 years from now, it's going to be the same meeting.
We're going to
So,
keep this every month.
And here's the community part. Those are great ideas. You know that community better than we're ever going to know because we don't live there. There, our officers are there. But if you have an activity you want us to be involved in, we have over 1,000 cops throughout Monroe County, you'll get people. So just contact the chief's office, and you want people there, we'll give you cops. We have cops, almost all of us are athletes. We love playing sports, and if it's a little kid, the odds are we're going to win. So I feel good about it. Kidding. We'll let them win occasionally. But if you got something like that you want to do, we love doing that stuff. Going to schools, city schools, reading books, and doing stuff all the time.
And other good point you made, we have to constantly keep these meetings going, not just drop off in another year from now on. And we have to, right here is the starting of all our law enforcement and a big part of the community together. We've got to stay and fight it.
Right.
Right. Mary, if I can just say, back in the 90s, I mean, Jefferson Avenue, I mean, it's still bad, but it's not as bad as it used to be in the 90s. That's exactly what we did. Community, businesses, neighborhood groups, block clubs, all of us band together. We put signs up where they were selling heroin. We had big banners. We were one of the first ones that had those big banners all up and down Jefferson Avenue. The businesses came together and did codes of conduct for each of the businesses to how they had to operate. They couldn't sell this. Their windows had to be clear. I mean, all kinds of things that we did. We had a wonderful partnership with the police department, and we had block clubs, we had parties, we had a lot of things, and it was so disruptive. And we were one of the first ones that had the substation there for that reason, because at 2 o'clock in the morning in the 90s, it was like New York City. You couldn't move down it.
It was terrible.
It was terrible.
It was like a bad Michael Jackson.
It really was. Listen, we worked together for like 8 years, and we really made a difference.
Getting rid of, cleaning up the vacant lots.
Exactly.
All down vacant houses.
All that.
Getting those places.
On Jefferson Avenue. And then we also had a bridge, if you guys remember. It was an alternative incarceration program. That's where people used to come in, right from the community, to get all the services and help. We worked with the drug court. We were really the model that formed the drug court.
And unfortunately,
so
the
the community
got even bigger.
Yes, the power is in the community, really.
Yeah.
Working with the police and everybody else, it really is.
That's what it's all about here today. All right.
Chief Simonelli, could you talk about why the North Clinton neighborhoods, the one that the gentleman was just speaking about, Scranton and Evergreen, I've talked with those neighborhood leaders a number of times, and one of the things that they bring up frequently is that the people who come, first of all, it's been going on for years and years and years. It's deeply entrenched in that neighborhood. And many of the people who come into that neighborhood for that purpose are not from that area. And it's kind of a well-known thing. So I'm just wondering how is it so well-known, and yet at the same time, they seem to be really struggling trying to have progress in cleaning up their neighborhood.
Well, the fact is that the northeast part of the city, there's heroin issues, drug issues all over the city. The northeast part, especially the North Clinton corridor, is a focal point, it has become well known. I'm not going to give you, I don't have a specific number to give you, but we know through our intelligence, the people that are arrested, the people we deal with, that, a good number of people are coming from outside that neighborhood and outside the city to get drugs. It's like any other, it's a business. And if you want to go buy a car, you need to know where a car dealership is. Yeah. So you need to know, so the reputation gets out there. So it is entrenched. So, and that's why, last year we did a heroin initiative, which is ongoing. But again, I want to emphasize that it was not just a law enforcement approach. It started by getting together with the community community coming to myself and Mayor Warren and saying, we will help you, but you've got to do something. So,
good evening, families in East Community. I would like to wish everyone a peaceful evening. Thank you for joining us tonight as we conclude our parent-teacher conferences and family dinner night. Adesia and Michelle Cayenne, if you're in the building, would you please come to the Ohio Street parking lot side of the building so that you may have your ride. Thank you.
so, you know, I'll try to move along quickly, but yes, to answer your question, we tried to take an outside-the-box approach, working together. One of the things that, if you saw any of the presentations or the news conferences we did, just some of the heartbreaking photos we saw of playgrounds littered in needles. So we tried to take an approach which involved law enforcement. The mayor brought together the local health and social service community, as Deputy Chief Peters talked about, and we're resulting now in having a little more capability to get people to. We really tried to coordinate with other city departments on these vacant houses in these areas, changing the lighting, cutting trees, trimming bushes, taking fences down. So there's a lot of things we can do. Now, I'll say a year later, I'm not declaring victory because we still have a serious problem there, but I can tell you that a lot of people that do live in the neighborhood have noticed a difference. Again, it wasn't because we went in and arrested a bunch. We did make a lot of arrests, but that was only part of it. But so that it has become entrenched, and we have a successful model, and we're going to keep it up and try to chip away at this.
I just have one last question for District Attorney Dorley. Is it legal to, or what are the legal ramifications of, what if I say, well, this person here is in her home, she's doing drugs, and she's not dealing drugs. I mean, that's one of the ideas that's being presented here.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, I mean, I personally have seen neighbors get into quarrels with one another, and I tell people that I know, the worst thing you can ever have happen is to get into a dispute with your neighbor, because you have to go home there.
Exactly, and you know what, and we're confined to the Fourth Amendment and probable cause issues, so, and we can't work off of hearsay allegations, generally. So, the police have to have, hard and fast knowledge that there's drug dealing going on. They need to have probable cause to actually, make that arrest. They can't go in someone's home.
We could never get a search warrant based on an anonymous tip. We would have to make our own buys, have a confidential informant make a buy, do surveillances. We just can't. We certainly we can't do that. So that's a good point to raise, though, because that's not any good thing to be abused in the wrong hands. So I'm glad you raised that point. That's an excellent point. But our people are trained to go through that. But one of the things is if we start getting 5, 10, 15, 20 calls or tips on the same house, it helps us focus our attention to say, okay, but again, we just don't go rushing in. We have to develop a probable cause in a good case before we do that.
And that's the way to do it. I mean, if we put eyes on the house, you get an informant in there.
And we use the terminology alleged.
So, and it has to be, we can just go in there and make an arrest and all that stuff, no problem, but we can also look at maybe the person who owns the house might be just a renter that's inside there, and if it's the same landlord that has 80 different houses throughout the city, and he makes it a habit of just renting to, known drug dealers, we can go after him through, our other legal ways through the city itself, other resources that we have. So we look at little things there is say, what is the main culprit here? We can go in there and make a quick arrest, and everybody feels good. But as Mary said when she first started, the next day that house pops right back up and they're back out there selling. So how do we actually stop this? So we have to look at it as a bigger approach right there instead of just making those quick arrests.
It's actually a good lead into my question, because it keeps coming up at our association meetings, is there a registry for all of the private security cameras that are out there? There are dozens in our neighborhood alone. There's only 300 houses.
No,
And people keep saying, tell the police because the police have a registry, and then the police
Well, this
don't.
is what we're doing. That's a great question. You know, we have the city blue light cameras, whether about 130 up now at various places around the city, but there's many, many more, probably in the thousands of private security cameras. We have started an internal project at RPD a couple of years ago where every time we do a case where we come up with a private security camera, we're now logging it. So, you know, it's a long process. We're also, we have actually started in some locations working with private businesses to give us login rights to their cameras. So if there's an issue, we can directly log in from the police department. So,
Can we accelerate that process?
well, I'm glad, you know, anybody here that has a security camera, you can let us know, but that's a great idea. And then what we hope to do is really to kind of broker this public-private partnership because a lot of it's out there. But right now, we actually, for our officers and investigators, anytime that we locate a camera, we log it on a map, and if, let's say there's a crime in a particular area, our officers and investigators can pull up a map now, and they can, it's certainly not all the cameras, but all the ones we know, and every time we get a new one, it gets better and better, so we have, it kind of focuses us to go look and try to get that help, so that's a great thing.
Yeah, we also have to fill out a form as far as a release form that allows us the permissions to actually use their cameras and their footage, so if we need it, you know, they're like, yep, absolutely, here you can. If anything happens in the neighborhood, come on down, and I'll give you what we have.
This city needs more pro public service announcements and things like that.
DNC guy.
Wow.
I'm sorry. City newspaper gives some free advertising. Zach?
So I think what you said is really important, that nobody knows our community better than we do. And so I'm interested in knowing, is there any incentives available to officers in the city to live in the community they police? I know there's a reorganization project to keep officers in a certain area, but if there is, I'd like to know what the incentive is. If there isn't, what is a viable incentive? Because I think that probably everybody sitting here would feel like crime would go down in their neighborhood if an officer lived up the street from them.
So we do have a couple different programs. I'm sorry, Chief. Yeah, I just took advantage of it. Because I just took advantage of it. I live in Charlotte. So they have actually, for all full-time city employees, not just police, but all fire, DES, everybody else, any full-time city employee, you can apply for a grant and actually get up to $6,000 for closing costs towards your, for buying your house. Part-time employees up to $3,000. The other thing there that we also have is it's for teachers and firemen and police, called the Police Officer Next Door program. So we have a lot of houses that might be need, you know, kind of like a fixer-upper, like a flip type situation, where we can actually get inside there and get a house at a markedly reduced price, almost free, where we can get inside there and instead of just staying there, you have to live there for up to 5 years, but with that, you can apply for a bunch of grants and actually get the house built up. And there's a bunch of our officers who have taken advantage of that throughout the years. So there's lots of stuff as far as advantages for our officers. So that's
great.
I was going to add, I think the development projects seem to work. So I know in my neighborhood, Plex, years ago, Plymouth Avenue seemed to be, I wasn't growing up, I mean, it's my neighborhood. So but now since there's a new development, there seems to be a change in the neighborhood. So maybe we can, for Clinton Avenue or certain areas, make sure we do some investment in their business structure or development project, because it seems to be, even on Main Street here, there's new development. Wherever there's a new development project, things seem to change. I don't know if it's because of the powers that be or the investment of money, but that seems to change the whole neighborhood because of the investment.
I believe the mayor made mention of that like last year during her State of the City address. I was talking about La Marqueta, actually dusting out those plans and actually starting to pump money into that and developing that area right there on North Clinton and all that stuff, and making that like that hub for that neighborhood right there. So I know the mayor's office is deeply in the middle of plans and actually doing that right there.
You know, when we first started that, I was like, I wonder how long it's going to look like this, right? It's being well maintained. people are taking care of it, they're taking pride in it, so I think that's a great thing.
And of course, and the illegal gun issue, which is very tied with our drug world, our killings, our violence. So that has to get off the streets just like, and where are our guns coming from? Our illegal guns.
I mean, I can just briefly say how we're addressing it in the court system. You know, I think it's been now 2 years that we've had a gun court, so all gun possession crimes are going before. Now it's actually 2 judges because of the volume. And, you know, it's a fast track to those that, you know, deserve state prison. But, you know, we're seeing, you know, some, I'm going to say kids, you know, who are stuck, you know, are caught with a gun, and they're saying, okay, I need it for my own protection. So we're giving them a chance to turn their life around. We're giving them interim probation where they can earn the opportunity not to go to state prison. We're also doing a program called Swift, Certain, and Fair, where we target, you know, those that are really on the cusp of, you know, going to prison, and we're giving them the opportunity to get into programs, get their education. They're on curfews, they're on, you know, electronic monitoring. So we are working within the system to give those who deserve a chance, a fair chance, and again, to fast track those who really need to be taken off the streets.
And what about these M57s, right, where we have some of the streets, or whatever, those
And four rifles?
Say, that 57's a tank, I think.
We're gonna need bigger stuff.
You know what, they're few and far between. They're out there, but they're few and far between. Handguns are what's killing all of our kids. Because they're easily concealable, you can transport them easily, you can put them in cars.
Affordable high of drugs again, and then coming across state lines, or where the, how could
Well, it's
that
difficult because
state
in New York
come
State, New York State has very strict gun laws, which we all try to enforce. But obviously, states to the south have less strict gun laws. So they're easily bought and sold down there, and they come across borders. That's our job throughout the area to report those things and make sure that we stop those. It's difficult. As you said, they're easily concealable. So for us in law enforcement, those are the scariest stops that we
Can't
have.
track down who the.
I'm going to ask Commander Morabito to step up because he kind of spearheads our gun efforts. So I'm going to ask him to talk briefly about what efforts we're making with illegal guns and what we know about our gun issues here.
So we have, I didn't hear the original question, but this is probably easy enough. And I know the chief was dying to get me to stand up and say something, so I'm happy to do it. He's my boss, sorry. So we have a number of things going on, and Sandra talked about a couple really good ones with the court side of it and the Swift, Certain, Fair, which Timmy actually spearheads from the police side of it. But we actually have a firearms group that we put together, and we started working on pistol permit stuff because we find that a lot of guns that are used in crimes in the city were illegal or were legally registered at one time. Probably 75%, 80% of them were legally registered at one time and then used in a crime. So we actually have a whole program where we monitor, and the Sheriff's Office participates in it too, as well as our Crime Analysis Center, where we actually put people in for pistol permit reviews and follow through, because we find that folks are doing stuff where they legally bought the gun, but they're actually transferring to criminals, or they're being sold for drugs and different things. So we actually have that, and we've actually made some strides on that, and we're tightening that piece up. We work closely with the ATF. We have our guys in bed with the ATF. So we do actually gun investigations, whether it's gun trafficking investigations or local investigations on gun crimes. Those, a lot of times, they're longer-term investigations, more similar to the criminal conspiracies, or not quite a RICO case, but more of those cases. So you may not see the initial splash, and then you might read something in the paper that looks like this long inside the paper, but it took 2 years to get there, and we made maybe significant seizures. The other thing we do is when we hit and serve search warrants on drug houses, we seize a lot of guns that way, because oftentimes the guns are in the drug houses to protect their business, to protect their trade. So another way we attack the gun issue is by doing search warrants on active drug locations. The other thing we do on a regular basis is there's many corrective stops, and that's all the agencies in the room, the Sheriff's Office and the troopers. When we're making a lot of those corrective stops and those traffic stops, we're recovering guns quite often. probably, Timmy, 5, 6, 7, 8 a week, just the RPD guys.
I will just jump in here. If you want to go on our Facebook, back in early September, we did a press conference, and I just wanted to acknowledge the work that our officers were doing. And we laid out a number of the guns that our officers took off the streets in proactive. These are all illegal guns, not gun buybacks or somebody walked in and turned them over, but where officers chase people into dark yards and alleys to get these guns back. And as many as you see, if you go on our Facebook page, there's videotape. There were 50 more that were seized over the summer that were in the lab being processed for evidence. We couldn't lay them out. So this is, I'll just say, with all the great stuff that Joe's talking about, all our beat officers that are out there, this is a priority for them to track down these illegal guns before they can hurt someone.
Yeah, and a lot of the focus we find is that the crime of the violent piece, the guns are readily accessible. So we get an argument, Dorian and I get an argument, and if I have the gun on me, I might shoot him.
Yeah.
If I can separate him from the gun, or me from the gun, and we get in the argument, well, I don't have it now, and I have a chance maybe to cool down, maybe next time I see him, I'm not really going to shoot somebody, because I don't have it accessible. So we're focusing a lot on our gun efforts, our traffic stops, our stopping the kids on the corner, any kind of tips we get on guns, we follow through on those. We do trace any guns to find out.
Traces every gun that
I trace every gun that comes in, and we see if there's any kind of patterns that they might be coming. But it is mostly local guns in Rochester that end up, actually probably the Monroe County area, I should say, not just Rochester, that are used here. We do get some traffic up from the different states, and they were mentioned down south, mostly Georgia, Florida, maybe some Pennsylvania are coming here, but it's not a huge pipeline of trafficking. It's more a local set of guns that are used. And the other thing to keep in mind is many of our youth that are involved in violent crimes, that gun is a big commodity because they know what they're doing, right? They're committing a violent crime. They're now at risk for retaliation. So that's a hot commodity on the street. A lot of people don't want to sell their guns. So we often try to buy guns and do interdictions that way. And a lot of people don't want to sell them because they need them for protection because of the type of business they're in. It tends to be that hot commodity with those groups. So that's some of the stuff we're doing with guns, and obviously we're constantly focusing on the violent piece, which is often tied to hand